Let's go to the toll record, since that's been raised, Mr. Smith. First of all, Congress has allowed toll records to be subpoenaed. This committee has actually tried to limit it over the years, and the senators who are whining the most over on the Republican side in the Senate, they never went along with our determination to try to limit the government's ability to subpoena toll records. So it's perfectly lawful what you did. Explain, why did you want those toll records?
We wanted to conduct a thorough investigation of the matters that was assigned to me, including attempts to interfere with the lawful transfer of power. The conspiracy that we were investigating, it was relevant to get toll records to understand the scope of that conspiracy, who they were seeking to coerce, who they were seeking to influence, who was seeking to help them.
And that's normal investigative practice, right?
In conducting a criminal investigation, securing non-content toll records, as you described, is a common practice in almost any complex conspiracy.
Okay, let's go to something else that I've been hearing over the last week by our colleagues as they've eagerly anticipated your arrival here. They've been saying that there's some kind of First Amendment defense that Donald Trump would have had to the crimes you indicted him for. Is there a valid First Amendment defense to defrauding the public? Is there a valid First Amendment defense to disrupting a federal proceeding? Is there a valid First Amendment defense to violating the voting rights of the people and cheating the public out of a fair election?
The First Amendment is something that we took seriously in our investigation. But the First Amendment does not protect speech that facilitates a crime. Speech that is used to facilitate a crime, a fraud crime in particular, is not protected under the First Amendment. The Supreme Court precedent on that is clear. This is an issue that we litigated before the district court, and the district court ruled, as I just stated, that it is not in fact protected.
And the case law is perfectly clear on this, right? All frauds are perpetrated by speech, right?
Yes.
All conspiracies are perpetrated by speech. So just because your criminal conduct is brigaded with speech doesn't somehow mean you've got a First Amendment defense against trying to overthrow the government. I mean, the people who attacked the police officers on January 6th were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." I suppose that was political speech, or they were saying, "Stop the steal." Does that mean they've got a First Amendment defense to violent assault against the officers?
It does not.
William Barr, by the way, was somebody who was perfectly clear about that. Donald Trump's own attorney general said, there's no freedom of speech that you have to engage in a conspiracy, to overthrow an election, to commit crime. He was perfectly clear about that. Back in those days, in fact, lots of people on that side of the aisle, including my good friend, the chairman, denounced the violence that took place on January 6th. The cat's got their tongue these days. My friend Chairman Jordan said, what happened last week was terrible, is tragic. It's as wrong can be, he said. Republicans, we know all political violence is wrong. I asked my friend Chairman Jordan at a rules hearing, are you also not interested in what happened to us on January 6th? He said, of course, everyone's interested in holding people accountable who did wrong. The FBI is doing that. The Justice Department is doing that, appropriately so. What do you think about the attack on the Department of Justice and the Special Counsel for doing your jobs?
I think the attack is unjustified. I think the people who worked with me as career public servants are people, they're part of the reason I've been a prosecutor for so long, is to work with people like that, not just the prosecutors in my office, but also the agents, FBI agents who are heroes, who have served their country not only as agents, but also overseas. I think those attacks are unwarranted based on the facts, and I think that they have no basis in who we are as Americans, as a country.
Mr. Smith, did your investigation uncover evidence sufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump knew that his claim that the election was stolen was false?
Yes, it did.
And did your investigation uncover evidence sufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump publicly claimed that the 2020 election was stolen from him, while he privately acknowledged that he had lost the election?
Yes, we cited instances of that during in our case.
But yet here we see that on the 5th anniversary of the insurrection, the Trump White House propaganda machine is still promoting the stolen election theory on this government webpage with a text box titled, quote, fraudulent election, stolen election certified, end quote. The site also has a subsection reading in part, quote, FBI entrapment operation exposed. Mr. Smith, did your investigation develop any evidence to support the allegation that the FBI entrapped insurrectionists into committing crimes on January 6th?
Our investigation revealed that Donald Trump is the person who caused January 6th, that it was foreseeable to him, and that he sought to exploit the violence.
This website also accuses you of being a, quote, Biden prosecutor who brought, quote, weaponized charges against Mr. Trump. Mr. Smith, were you a Biden prosecutor who weaponized the Department of Justice against Donald Trump?
Absolutely not.
Did Attorney General Merrick Garland direct you to prosecute Trump because Donald Trump was running against Joe Biden in the presidential election?
No.
There are also allegations that President Trump was the victim of, quote, lawfare, and accusations that the Department of Justice lawyers who prosecuted Donald Trump used, quote, fabricated indictments and rigged show trials. Did you, Mr. Smith, or the men and women working on your team work to fabricate indictments or put on rigged show trials?
No, we secured indictments from grand juries, and we were prepared to prove our case in court beyond a reasonable doubt.
Did you use your appointment as special counsel to conduct a politically motivated witch hunt, scam investigation, and prosecution of Donald Trump?
I did not. We followed the facts and we followed the law. Where that led us was to an indictment of an unprecedented criminal scheme to block the peaceful transfer of power.
And those indictments have been dismissed. Can they be re-brought or resurrected after Trump leaves office?
They were dismissed without prejudice.
So they can be refiled? And he can be prosecuted after he leaves office. Is that correct?
I'm not going to speak to that. I can only speak to what we did, which was dismiss the case without prejudice.
These guys, my Republican colleagues, are a joke. They're wrong. History will harshly judge them. So I want you to lean in today. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You did everything right, sir. And I am these guys are so lucky they're not under oath, because they would have to tell you what they really think of Trump. They call him crooked. They call him cruel. They call him a scumbag. I've heard you all say it. You're lucky you're not under Trump, but when the lights go on and the cameras are on, you're tiny, you're small, you shrink. Everyone remembers Matt Gaetz coming over here after a committee hearing. He would laugh at how stupid he thought Trump was. This is all a show. And Mr. Smith, you're just the latest act that they've brought in. But they can't erase what happened on January 6th because we saw it with our own eyes. Mr. Smith, after the mainstream media called the race for Biden about a week after the election, did Donald Trump concede the election?
He did not.
The next month, the Electoral College met in every state and voted Biden as the winner. Did Donald Trump concede then?
He did not.
Shortly after that, the last court case that Donald Trump brought was thrown out. Did he concede then?
No.
Is it your judgment then that only Donald Trump could have convened the mob in the size that it was assembled on January 6th?
Our assessment of the evidence is that he is the person most responsible for what happened on January 6th. He caused what happened. It was foreseeable to him. And then when it happened, he tried to exploit it in furtherance of the conspiracy.
And you actually obtained indictments from a grand jury, right? You went to a grand jury and did something that the Trump administration has not been able to do as they go after their enemies. Their cases are being thrown out. You obtained criminal indictments against the president. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mr. Smith, do you know who Edward Loya is?
I'm sorry?
Edward Loya, L-O-Y-A?
I believe Mr. Loya worked at the public integrity section when I was there.
Did you know that he said of you, when it comes to investigating allegations of sophisticated federal criminal matters, Jack Smith is the gold standard? Do you know who Mr. James McGovern is?
Yes, he was a prosecutor I worked with in New York.
Did you know that he said of you, I have no idea what Mr. Smith's political beliefs are because he's completely apolitical? So are you a registered independent?
I have no partisan loyalties. I don't know if I'm registered as independent or not registered at all.
Are you glad you accepted Attorney General Garland's request to be a special prosecutor, even though you've been dragged over political barbed wire and your family has been subjected to death threats?
I don't regret it.
Do you remember where you were on September 11th?
I do.
What did you think of that day?
I was in Brooklyn when that happened. I was at the command center that night. I worked on that investigation. I remember pretty clearly.
Do you remember where you were on January 6th?
On January 6th, I was living in Europe working for the State Department seconded to a war crimes tribunal.
What did you think as you watched on television what happened at the Capitol that day?
To be honest with you, I don't recall if I saw it that day or a later day because of the time period.
What did you think when you saw it?
I was shocked. I was shocked by it. I obviously, being in Europe and not following things as closely, I was not, frankly, up to speed on the events leading up to it.
What shocked you about it?
I just never seen anything like that happen in our country.
Mr. Smith, I don't know if I'll ever have the honor to talk to you again. If I don't, please know that I and my colleagues on the Democratic side, and even my Republican colleagues when they speak privately, have nothing but respect and appreciation for what you tried to do and how you did it.
In your final report, you wrote that, and I'm quoting, the through line of all Mr. Trump's criminal efforts was deceit, knowingly false claims of fraud. Mr. Smith, what did your investigation reveal about President Trump's interactions with Georgia's officials regarding his frauds claims?
As I sit here now, I can recall two specific officials. The first was the Secretary of State, who was a fellow Republican. My understanding, he voted for and supported Donald Trump in the election, but told Donald Trump in a conversation that was recorded in no uncertain terms the results of the election and debunked many of the fraud claims that Donald Trump had to him in real time. In addition to that, I recall that Donald Trump also spoke firsthand with the Attorney General of your state, also a Republican, who informed Donald Trump that he had supported him and voted for him twice in the past. He also told Donald Trump he did not see outcome determinative fraud in that state.
I have an audio from a phone call between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State regarding the 2020 election. Could you please play the audio?
Are angry. The people of the country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Mr. Smith, you explained in your deposition that Georgia Secretary of State was one of the witnesses who disabused President Trump's false claims. How did Georgia's Secretary of State push back against Trump's efforts?
I think my recollection is in this same call, President Trump repeatedly raised fraud claims, and the Secretary of State repeatedly explained not only that they weren't true, but I believe my recollection is in several instances explained why they weren't true. And I believe that call ended, my recollection is that it ended with President Trump, in essence, threatening the Secretary of State that he might be a target for criminal prosecution if he didn't do what President Trump wanted him to do.
So see, that raises a very critical point. President Trump didn't just spread lies about the election. In your words, and I'm quoting, he preyed on, end quote, Republican officials in Georgia and other states who believed would help him. Mr. Smith, Donald Trump thought these officials would break the law out of party loyalty. And when those officials, his own political allies, told him the truth, he dismissed them and continued to spread the lies anyway. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Smith, if your case had gone to trial, would the evidence from Georgia have helped prove that President Trump knowingly engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election?
Yes. After an investigation following the facts and the law, we believed we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt to prove those charges.
And in your deposition, you mentioned a fake elector witness in Georgia who you thought would have been a very powerful witness at trial. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in a very limited amount of time?
Sure. It was a witness who had been made to understand that his electoral vote, his alternative electoral vote, would only be used if they won in court, if they won in litigation. That didn't happen, and President Trump and his co-conspirators tried to use those alternative fake elector certificates to get Mike Pence.
Mr. Chairman, regular order.
Himself.
Okay, well, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for the work that you and your team of career prosecutors have put forth.
I mean, we're definitely not in a court of law today. Half this shit wouldn't come in if we were. I mean, good God, you know. I want to talk about something one of my colleagues, Mr. Nell, said from Texas. He sits on this new January 6th subcommittee, which I also happen to sit on. And he said the same thing in the subcommittee the other week, that it wasn't President Trump that inspired January 6th, right? It wasn't him. He said in the subcommittee that it was actually Ray Epps. Ray Epps. He was the one who told people to break the law and the windows and the doors and to beat police officers and hang Mike Pence and try to break into the floor of the House and wiping feces on the walls. It was all this guy, Ray Epps, right? So who is Ray Epps? Why is he so powerful? So, I mean, I just did a quick, Google search of Ray Epps, and his Wikipedia page says the powerful Ray Epps is a wedding planner to the Oath Keepers. This is the wedding planner? That's the mastermind of January. You went from Donald Trump. It wasn't Donald. Who are we going to blame? Who could it be? How about the wedding planner to the Oath Keepers? I mean, it's just pathetic. But, my colleagues love the past, Mr. Smith. Love the past. That's why you're here before Pam Bondi. Okay? We haven't had the Attorney General here. We didn't have her last year. She's the only one in the cabinet to not come in committee of reference. But they love the past. Oh, they, love talking about January 6th and Hunter Biden and COVID and Barack Obama and Hillary's emails. They love the past. These people love the past so much, they're still reenacting the Civil War. Okay? Love the past. Right now. But they hate talking about the present. But you know what? Let's talk about the past real quick. Here are some quotes, because I heard one of my colleagues call you a hypocrite. Here are some quotes from my colleagues. Chairman Jordan, right after January 6th, stop the violence, support Capitol Police. Ted Cruz, those storming the Capitol need to stop right now. The Constitution protects but not violence. Chip Roy, today the People's House was attacked, which is an attack on the Republic itself. Steve Scalise, United States Capitol Police saved my life. Lindsey Graham, when it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand his actions were the problem. Troy Nels, oh my God, him again. I'm happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with Capitol Police. Darrell Issa, the violence and turmoil we witnessed in Washington, D.C. was completely unacceptable. Rep. McClintock, the attack on Capitol strikes the most sacred act of our democracy. and former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, whose name we heard a lot today. What did he have to say about it? Let me be clear. Last week's violence attack on the Capitol was undemocratic, un-American, and criminal. And make no mistake, those who were responsible should be brought to justice. The president bears responsibility. Period. Or exclamation point. But let's talk also about, the present. That's the past. Let's talk about the present. These are the guys who created the weaponization committee for the DOJ. So let's talk about the present. Jerome Powell facing investigation. Okay. In fact, we heard about Jonathan Turley, that he's some legal messiah. Jonathan Turley calls the Jerome Powell thing legitimate concerns of retaliation. Lisa Cook under investigation. Mark Kelly, United States Senator, under investigation. Adam Schiff, United States Senator, under investigation. Eric Swalwell, United States Representative, under investigation. Chris Christie, potentially under investigation. Jack Smith, oh, that's you, under investigation. Okay, Miles Taylor, former Chief of Staff to United States Department of Homeland Security, under investigation. Christopher Krebs, former Director of Cybersecurity, under investigation. Indicted. James Comey, Letitia James. John Bolton. It's weird that they indicted John Bolton but stole his foreign policy. Accused of crimes. Former President Joe Biden. Former President Barack Obama. Revoked or threatened with revocation of Secret Service protection. Kamala Harris. Hunter Biden. Ashley Biden, the daughter of President Joe Biden. Mayorkas. Mike Pompeo. Brian Hook. General Mark Milley. John Bolton. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the guy Trump gave a medal to. Security clearance revoked. Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, Jacob Sullivan, Lisa Monaco, Mark Zaid, Norman Eisen, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Andrew Weissman, Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, Adam Kinzinger, Fiona Hill, Alexander Vindman. Miles Taylor, I could keep going. Any questions about any of that? We know you don't.
But will the gentleman yield for a question?
I will, please.
Because you have a way of synthesizing that nobody else does, Mr. Moskowitz. Listening to our colleagues today, I wonder if they actually believe any of this would have happened had Donald Trump simply accepted the results of the election.
You mean like Al Gore did when he lost 5-4 at the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would any of this, would the violence have happened? Would the fake counterfeit slates have happened?
No,
the threats against Vice President Pence?
No, none of it would have happened. And Leanne Panetta would still have a security clearance, so would John Brennan, so would Michael Morrell, Michael Vickers. I can't get them all in, Mr. Chairman.
But let's go back to the actual evidence rather than all the procedural stuff about when you were sworn in or not. I don't blame you for not remembering that. You've been probably sworn in a dozen times. It doesn't jump out at you. I want to go back to the evidence, though, that Donald Trump knew that he was lying about the election. And I'd ask you to say, if you could, specifically, who gave evidence to you that supported your conclusion that he knew that he was lying?
That came from a number of sources. It came from staff in the White House who talked to him and told him that his fraud claims were not true. It came from staff on his campaign who told him that. It came from members of the Department of Justice. It came from state officials who, when he tried to press them to do things in contravention of their oath, they refused to. They asked him for evidence, and his co-conspirators, and they never provided it. Over and over again, the people who had who were best situated to know how the elections were conducted in these states, he either avoided contacting them or disregarded the clear debunkings that were provided to him, such as by the Georgia Secretary of State.
Right, and I mean, that's a lot of evidence, but we know that his attorney general at the time also concluded, quote, he knew well that he lost the election, Bill Barr, and yet he incited a riot on January 6th, and 4 of the brave officers who defended the Capitol and defended my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are here today. Not a single Republican member of this committee has recognized them or thanked them for their service, and I would like to do so today. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, my colleague from California referred to a couple statements from your former colleagues in Penn and the Eastern District about your impeccable reputation as an apolitical career politician. As an alum of the Southern District of New York myself, I can tell you that many of my former colleagues also feel the same, and that's saying something coming from the SDNY to the EDNY, as you know. Mr. Smith, did you ever speak to President Biden about this case?
Never.
Did you ever receive orders or direction from President Biden or anyone else in the White House about this case?
No.
Did you ever receive any direction from the Attorney General Merrick Garland regarding how you should, whether or not you should charge this case?
No, I was given the independence to make that decision on my own.
An independent special counsel, exactly. I just want to point out to my colleagues who seem to think this is a politicized investigation that on February 10th, over a month, 2021, over a month after January 6th, Marco Rubio said the January 6th attack on the Capitol was far more dangerous than most realize, and we have a criminal justice system in place to address it. Who oversaw the Department of Justice on February 10th, 2021? Who was president?
February 10th, 2021. That would be Joe Biden.
So Marco Rubio wanted Joe Biden's Department of Justice to investigate Donald Trump and his January 6th insurrectionist. I want to ask you in my last few seconds, Mr. Smith, you're not the first special counsel to investigate Donald Trump. Special Counsel Mueller, also of impeccable integrity, concluded that the 2016 Trump campaign welcomed foreign interference from Russia and used it to help them. Donald Trump has made it a litmus test to be hired in this administration to say that the 2020 election was fraudulent, even though, as you have established, it was not. And now there are senior officials in this government who are responsible for protecting our elections, who are election deniers. Can you describe in a few seconds what your concerns are about the upcoming election based on your investigation and what we know today?
I believe political litmus tests are not proper for career prosecutors. I think my experience over 30 years as a prosecutor in the Department of Justice is having people who are not guided by party allegiance, but guided by experience. That's how you can trust the criminal justice system. It's the same way with our election system.
It's curious because you've sat here all day, and thank you so much for showing up, because this was something that you wanted to do. The Republicans wanted to make sure that you were hid in a room with no cameras, because I was there. They didn't really want you out public because they were afraid of what you would say, which is that you could have proven your case because you are a career prosecutor who knows how to prosecute criminals. So just to be clear, today it seems like the Republicans have not really fought very much about whether or not Trump was guilty or not. In fact, their fight seems to be over whether or not you were authorized to prove their guilt. Do you recall a number of Republican members asking about whether or not your appointment was okay, even though we know that you've testified about the more than 100-year precedent that allowed for your appointment?
I was asked questions about that today, and our position, as we filed in our appeal, is that there was strong support for my appointment, including Supreme Court precedent directly on point.
Thank you so much. Additionally, everybody's been all gingerly here today, but I don't know why we're acting surprised that a man who had close to 90 allegations out of 4 different jurisdictions and ultimately ended up with 34 convictions after a jury was able to hear all the evidence would possibly be committing a criminal act on January 6th. In fact, considering the fact that we are now under the impression that he is violating people's due process rights, he is ignoring court orders, He's starting wars without congressional authority in contradiction to the Constitution. He's enriching himself to the tune of over $1.4 billion. He's shaking down electeds to draw maps that will help him stay in power because the Republicans don't understand that they swore an oath to the Constitution and that we are supposed to do checks and balances. He's also shaking down TV stations to get money. So why are we trying to pretend as if it is out of the realm for this particular man to commit the crime that he committed on January 6th? And frankly, the only reason he ran for president was to make sure that he would not be prosecuted, because I fully believe that you would have put him under the jail based on our long-form conversation that we had. But according to your special counsel report on page 137, it states the department's view that the Constitution prohibits the continued indictment and prosecution of a president is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution, and that, quote, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the office assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. In other words, Donald Trump ran for president, like I said, so he wouldn't have to spend the rest of his life in prison. The chairman and other members of this committee have spent all day attacking you and trying to rewrite the history of January 6th. But Mr. Jim Jordan, the chairman, failed to mention how he was running around the Capitol terrified by the possibility that all those insurrectionists would harm him. In fact, on page 97 of the deposition transcript, you mentioned how Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, quote unquote, never saw Jim Jordan so scared. The chairman also failed to mention that he was in direct contact with the White House in the days leading up to and on January 6th, which is why his toll records were subpoenaed by your office. Let me be clear, because they're trying to act like this is Democrats on Republicans, and I guess you are a covert Democrat that knew that he was going to try to steal an election before he tried to steal that election, and so therefore you were somehow put into place. I mean, the conspiracy theories make your head spin, but nevertheless, were you going to subpoena the toll records of every single Republican simply because they were a Republican?
No. We subpoenaed the toll records in the course of this investigation because they were relevant to our investigation.
Relevant. Oh, okay. All right. So that means something about facts. So let's talk about facts. Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden, yes or no?
That's correct.
Okay. In fact, 60 federal and state courts have found that there was no evidence of election fraud. Trump's own attorney general and vice president knew that he lost the election, but he still tried to steal the election by pressuring state officials, designing fake elector plans, nearly having Mike Pence hanged, and ultimately demanding that his supporters, quote, fight like hell, correct?
Correct.
We all saw it happen once they reached, we all saw what happened once they reached the U.S. Capitol. As your report outlines, President Trump knew that he would incite violence at the Capitol that day. In fact, some of Trump's senior advisors were pushing for violence. For example, page 81 of the report details how co-conspirators number 2, John Eastman, tried to convince Mike Pence to break the law, stating that, quote, violence was necessary. So it isn't just Trump who was responsible for the death of multiple law enforcement officers and the injuries of thousands of people. A lot of Republican members of Congress are also responsible. 147 Republicans voted to overturn the 2020 election results, including multiple members currently serving on this committee, and I will yield.
Your willingness to speak directly to us and to the American people about your investigation is professional, it's courageous, and it's patriotic. It's high time that the American people hear directly from you about the results of your investigation of President Donald Trump for his criminal actions leading up to and the day of January 6th, 2021. The facts, according to your report, are simple. Without a single piece of evidence, Trump sowed doubt about the 2020 election results and urged his followers to, quote, walk down to the Capitol and fight like hell on January 6th. And that's exactly what they did. Thousands of insurrectionists violently tried to stop Congress from certifying the 2020 election and doing our duty, and they assaulted law enforcement officers, some of whom are sitting right here in the chamber with us. I was trapped in the House gallery with a small number of members that day, and I will never forget the pounding on the doors and the insurrectionists threatening to kill us right outside. My Republican colleagues keep trying to rewrite history. They claim that somehow Trump's words and actions did not legally rise to the level of criminal activity, that he did not directly cause violence at the Capitol. And so I want to set that record straight with you right now. First of all, you successfully secured indictments against Donald Trump in 2 major federal cases: election interference in the 2020 election and mishandling of classified documents after leaving office. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you've been a federal prosecutor for nearly 30 years. You led this investigation, combing through hundreds of thousands of documents, photos, videos, and communication. Did your investigation find that Donald Trump attempted to manufacture fraudulent slates of presidential electors in 7 states that he lost?
Yes.
Did he pressure state officials to ignore true vote counts in those states?
Yes.
Did he spread lies and conspiracies to his followers to make them believe that the election had been illegally rigged against him?
Yes.
Did he pressure DOJ officials to stop the certification of the election?
He did.
Did he pressure his own vice president, Mike Pence, to stop the certification against the oath of office that he had sworn to the Constitution?
He did.
And when all of this didn't work, did he, Donald Trump, motivate and inspire an angry mob to the U.S. Capitol to stop the certification?
Our proof showed that he caused what happened on January 6th, that it was foreseeable, and that he exploited that violence.
Did Donald Trump know that his allegations of election fraud were lies when he spread them?
Our proof was that he did, and we intended to prove that at trial.
In fact, as the quotes from your report behind me show, he even privately admitted that he lost the election, correct?
Yes.
He said, quote, "It doesn't matter if you won or lost the election, you have to fight like hell." And he said, "Can you believe I lost to this effing guy?" During your closed-door deposition last month, you and I had an exchange about the impact on our democracy, the toll on our democracy, for not holding a president accountable for trying to steal an election. Do you remember that exchange?
I do.
I want to return to it because I think what you said in the closed-door deposition is important for the American people to hear right here in your public testimony. How would you describe the toll on our democracy if we do not hold a president accountable for attempting to steal an election?
My belief is that if we do not hold the most powerful people in our society to the same standards of the rule of law, it can be catastrophic because if they don't have to follow the law, it's very easy to understand why people would think they don't have to follow the law as well. And so I think the law should be applied equally to everyone.
And what do you think the toll is for future elections and future presidents who try to steal an election?
I think if we don't hold people to account when they commit crimes, it sends a message that those crimes are okay, that our society accepts that. I believe that if we don't call people to account when they commit crimes in this context, it can endanger our election process, it can endanger election workers, and ultimately our democracy. The attack on this Capitol on January 6th was, and the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. said this, it was an attack on the structure of our democracy.
Did President Biden or anyone in the Biden White House ever direct you to seek retribution against anyone perceived to be Biden's political opponent?
No.
Did the Biden administration or President Biden or anyone in the White House ever write a social media post directing you to seek retribution against any particular individual?
No.
Did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever direct you to take any prosecutorial step whatsoever?
No.
Okay. Donald Trump made it clear he wanted to seek retribution against New York Attorney General Tish James. Trump relentlessly attacked her, saying, quote, "She should be prosecuted," and, quote, arrested and punished because she dared to hold Trump accountable for Trump's fraud in New York. Trump weaponized the Department of Justice, and the Trump DOJ opened a sham investigation into her alleged mortgage fraud. We know it's a sham investigation because they couldn't even get twice grand juries to secure indictments against her. When interim U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert, who Donald Trump himself appointed, spent 5 months investigating Tish James, he concluded there was not enough evidence to go forward. And what did Trump do? He fired his own U.S. attorney. Mrs. Smith, did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever tell you that Donald Trump should be, quote, arrested and punished?
No.
Did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever threaten to fire you based on any action you took or did not take?
No.
Donald Trump also directed the Trump DOJ to open investigations into his own appointees who refused to do his bidding. His DOJ recently investigated Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell because Powell won't cede to Trump's bullying on interest rates. Did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever direct you to go after any Biden appointee?
No.
Okay. I just want to say a little bit about what the Republicans have brought up about these phone toll records. Do you believe the Speaker of the House is above the law?
No, I don't believe anybody should be above the law.
Right. And U.S. senators are not above the law, correct?
No.
Yeah. And members of Congress are not above the law, right?
No.
Yeah, that's right, because we're not. And what Republicans are trying to argue is somehow, if you're doing an investigation, you can't do stuff to senators or members of Congress. Get out of here. We're just under a law like everybody else. And by the way, the speech and debate clause only applies to legislative acts, communications with legislative acts. Stealing a frickin' election and trying to do so is not a legislative act. It is a crime. So I don't know what the heck they're talking about. And this is so stupid. I'm a former prosecutor. You never in an investigation go and try to get someone's toll records or phone records and then tell them, hey, dude, we're about to get your phone records. Of course you wouldn't tell them. What the Republicans are saying today is just idiotic. I am so pleased you're here on national TV telling the American people that Trump was indicted. He was indicted lawfully, and multiple grand juries secured those indictments. Thank you for your service, and history will look upon you well.